Perfect. Thanks, Kevin. I will share my screen. And we are talking tonight about, sorry, I think my screen is not sharing properly. Okay, I'm hoping you can see my screen properly. So tonight we're talking about building a 6-month action plan. So we've talked about various pieces that you would want to fit into your planning for launching your business or continuing to build your business as you go. And tonight we're going to talk about building a 6-month action plan. So we talk about doing this. We've got a few different things we're going to go through. It's really all about practical tips and a roadmap that you can use to build that plan. So we're going to talk about why you need a plan, what the benefits are, how you can set that clear direction, creating goals for yourself, mapping out your next steps, planning for challenges, and adjusting your plan along the way. Because we all know you can have the best plan in the world, and sometimes things don't work out as you'd hoped. So that's a big part of the planning process and something that you really want to keep in mind. So we talk about how planning helps. So some of us are planners, some of us are not. Some of us like to wing it and fly by the seat of our pants, and that's great in certain parts of your life. But when it comes to building your side hustle or any business, really, it's really not the best approach to how you want to do things. And in particular, when it comes to a side hustle, planning is really important. You're working full-time or part-time, whatever else you're doing in your life, you're trying to fit in that work-life balance. If you want to fit the time in and the time for success into a side hustle, you really need to plan. It helps you stay focused, keeps you on track. It knows helps you understand what you need to work on. So what are the areas that you need to focus on, gives you that structure for planning. And then, of course, you can see your progress when you plan. So when you've got a list of goals, for example, it can be very satisfying when you're ticking items off and you achieve the goals. You write yourself a to-do list. It's very satisfying and motivating to have that opportunity to tick things off that box. So when it comes to planning, and we talk about that clear direction, you're really sitting down and understanding a few things. So where do you see your business? What do you want it to look like? How do you want to operate things? How do you want the whole thing to function as a part of your day-to-day function and your day-to-day life? And importantly, to look at what does success look like to you? So for some people, you want to make $1 million. You want to, be the most important person in the world. And that's all great. As a side hustle, you're probably looking at smaller levels of success. So that might look like I can retire a little bit early, or I'm making enough money so I can take my family on vacation. Or success might mean to you, I get to do something I enjoy and I don't really care how much I make. Maybe I make a few dollars here and there, but it's really more about enjoying that, that giving back to the community in terms of what I'm offering. And I'm not as focused on the financial piece. So success can mean different things to different people. And it's up to you to define that. No one can define that for you. And when you look about planning, excuse me, it's really important to break things down into smaller steps. So when you look at all the things you need to do, it can be very overwhelming. When you look at something as a whole plan, that's a lot, and it can be overwhelming to plan. It can be overwhelming to look at executing. So when you break things into smaller chunks, it makes it a little bit more manageable. You do one thing, you tick that off the list, you moved on to the next. And sometimes you can do things, sort of concurrently. Tonight, I'm going to work on 2 different things. I'm going to work on my marketing, and I'm going to look on building my budget, and that's great. But I don't have to do everything at the same time. I've got 15 things I want to do. I'll break it into smaller steps. You think about that, like a recipe, you're going to do each little piece at a time. And then consider what resources are available to you. You've got great resources here supporting this program. Kevin and his team at the North Simcoe Business Center, they're all about helping you as an entrepreneur. There's lots of resources to help you with your business, but also look at the resources around you in your personal life. Who might be able to make connections for you? Who can help you out with things? When you're working on your business here on a Thursday night, maybe there's someone who can help you out by taking your kids somewhere, walking your dog, or picking up your dry cleaning, whatever that might look like. Resources can be related to your business, but they can also be resources that can help you build that work-life balance and make a side hustle work. When we're looking at goals, I think everyone's probably heard of SMART goals. If you don't have a goal that's SMART, it's very difficult to stick to it and difficult to make it happen. And really what that means is you're very specific. So goals should be specific. They should be clearly laid out, measurable. You have to understand what it means to achieve it. How will I know when I've made it happen? Achievable is important. So you're not going to say in the first week, I'm going to make $1 million if you're selling something that's, you're selling $2 pencils, you're probably not going to make $1 million in the first week. You need to make it achievable and realistic as well. So something you can achieve, physically by getting things done. I can knit 15 hats this week. That's achievable. For me, but you're also looking at realistic in terms of how many do I think I can sell, how many people do I think I can reach out to, and what you can actually achieve. And then important with the SMART goals also is to have a timeline attached to it. So you want to make sure that you've got a deadline for yourself, because that's going to make sure you've got a goal that's a sort of that finish line in sight for you, and you're working towards something with that timeline in mind as well. So clear goals here. Here's a few examples for you. So something as simple as I'm going to finalize my offer and my pricing. So that's a goal. That's an important part of your business. Making sure you've got that offer down and you understand how you're going to present yourself to potential clients. Numbers based, you can see here. I'll reach out to 100 potential clients. Doesn't mean I'll get 100 sales, but I'm going to make that commitment to reaching out to those particular clients. So here's, these are simple and clear goals. They're not very complex. You want to keep it simple, particularly in the starting part of your business, because again, when you overcomplicate things, again, that becomes very overwhelming for you. It can be demotivating, and you can, easily want to throw in the towel and decide that the side hustle is not for you. If we're looking at goals, I'm going to talk about short-term goals for 3 months, and then we'll get into those medium-term goals when you're looking at the 6 months in terms of the business plan. So here you're focusing on small, realistic steps that you can complete soon. So this is, finalizing my offer. If you decide that social media is going to be a part of your marketing plan, maybe that's setting up your profiles. Maybe it's setting up your first couple of posts, but you're not going to say, I'm going to have 10,000 followers in the next 3 months. It's not a realistic piece. You're focusing on those realistic steps and keeping in mind that this is a side hustle for you. So you're likely working full-time or part-time, or you've got other things going on in your life, that this is only one part of your life. So make sure that those realistic steps are things that you consider when you're looking at 3 months. Again, looking at actions that can help you build momentum. So when you want to build on each step, so each piece that you complete of this puzzle, it helps you build to the next step. So you build your social media profiles. That's great. That can build momentum for you and help you get those next few posts up. And then your next step, you build on that. So then you're looking to gain followers. You're looking to build connections on those social media networks. And again, also helping you get organized. That's important too as a side hustle. It can, that piece of your life can take a lot of time from you, can take a lot of your resources and your energy. So make sure you're organized. So what you do is done well, and it's done efficiently, and it doesn't take away time from your life that isn't necessary. So not wasting times on things. And again, we're looking at manageable pieces here. You're looking at a short list here. Don't give yourself 500 3-month goals. That's not going to happen. Look at giving yourself, 3 to 5 reasonable goals that you can achieve, so you can make sure you stay on track. If you fill up the list and you're done, that's great. You can set another few goals for yourself, but don't set yourself up to fail. And I think this is an important one for those of us who, like to have that feeling of success. You want to make sure you're looking at things can give you a quick win and give you that confidence. So that's where those realistic and achievable goals come in so importantly here, is what's going to give you that quick win, what's going to make you have that confidence. So maybe it's reach out to someone who could use your service, and you have that conversation. So I've had my first sales meeting, I've done my first presentation, I've made my first phone call, I've sent my first email, whatever that looks like. That gives you that feeling of satisfaction and confidence to make the next phone call, to make the next plan. And then again, you want to go back to making sure things are clear. and easy to measure. And measurement doesn't have to be overcomplicated. I think sometimes when we talk about metrics, it's easy for people to overcomplicate them. Sometimes it can be a yes or no. Did I do it? Yes or no. I looked at, calling 5 people this week. Did I call 5 people? Yes or no. Did I set up my social media profile? Yes or no. Sometimes it might be I will make $500, and that's great. That's a little bit of a different monetary piece, but the measurements don't have to be overly complicated. And in fact, particularly in the first, 3 to 6 months, they shouldn't be. It should be very simple, very easy to measure. You're not talking about complex analytics and getting into spreadsheets and all that kind of thing. If you need a spreadsheet to measure your goals, it's probably not the right fit for a goal for the first 3 to 6 months. Down the road, sure, those are important. And you can certainly use a spreadsheet to track them, but you shouldn't need them for analysis and all kinds of complex functions. When you get into, oh, sorry, my computer seems to have frozen here. 6 months goals, that you're getting into the medium-term goals. So these should be a little bigger, a little more ambitious than your 3-month goals. They'll take up a little bit more time and planning. And these are the goals that are going to help you grow or sort of level up, so take you to that next level. So you're looking at opportunities to strengthen your business foundation as well, but you still want to make sure that they are realistic and measurable. So don't go shooting for the moon, where you're just going to, set yourself up to not achieve your goals, or set yourself up to be demotivated, and a little bit, you lack that confidence that you did. Make sure you're still looking at things that are realistic, but make sure that you still give yourself the opportunity to challenge yourself. By realistic and achievable, you don't want to make them too simple or too easy. You don't want to lose sight of the fact that you do want to challenge yourself and keep growing your business, because the only way you'll continue to grow is if you do continue to challenge yourself and challenge your business ideas. When we talk about your action plan, now, there's 3 key elements here that you really want to start with looking at. So you talk about your offer. So what are you selling? Who is it for? And that's an important piece of what you want to understand. Obviously, not every product is for every person. If I decide to start a dog walking business, it's pretty clear I'm not looking for people who only have cats. I'm looking for people who have dogs. I'm looking probably for people who have dogs and, maybe they work full time, or maybe they have mobility issues, or they're busy, or they have small children. You need to understand who's looking for my dog walking service and what they might look like. And as part of that offer too, that's where your pricing comes in, making sure that that's realistic and something that sort of fits the market. So understand that as part of your offer. When we talk about your visibility, that's really about how people will find you. So you can't just sit in your home and hope for somebody to knock at your door and ask about what you're doing. You need to find ways to get people to see you and get people to find you. So we've talked about some of that before with social media. You're looking at, phone calls, maybe joining your Chamber of Commerce. You're getting out there, speaking to people when you're at events, all kinds of different ways that this can happen. And choose the ways that are most appropriate for the services you're offering. So if you're offering services to a business, that's a great place for the chamber, right? If you're offering services for young parents, then getting involved in some of the activities that their children may be involved in, you're going to find them in those kinds of places. So think about how people will find you and people will discover what it is you do. And again, when we're going back to scheduling, this is so important in a side hustle, because you really want to make sure that you're planning for success and planning for the fact that, this is a small part of your life. It's not what you do all day, every day. You don't have, 24 hours in a day to spend on your business. So you have to plan when you'll work on it and make sure you set that schedule. As we talked about before, maybe it is every night, every Thursday night, you'll spend an hour or 2 on your business, and that's what you'll do each week. Treat it like an appointment, treat it like an important part of your life, and treat it like a business, and other people will too. And I think that's a really important to remember, that when you take it seriously, other people will. And when you're committed to that time, others around you will learn that that's the time you're spending on your business. And that's not the time you're just going to drop everything and, go out for dinner or a coffee, or pick up the dry cleaning or do the laundry. That this is the time that you'll spend on those important tasks that can move your business forward. When we talk about the plan, you're sort of looking at 4 stages as you get through this planning process. So first part, prep work. Nobody loves that part. It's the seems to be the worst part. Everyone's least favorite part of a business plan is your prep work, but it is really important. This is when you're gathering your information, building the business, starting to do that, that planning process and understanding who you are, what you offer, where you fit into the marketplace, and how you're going to do that. Once you've got all that together, then you're looking at your launch. So this is the most exciting part of what you do. You're putting that plan into action and you're starting that outreach. You're getting your face in front of people, your name in front of people, and your business in the hearts and minds of those around you. That's where the rubber really hits the road for you to have that offer and get it to the people, who really need what it is you're offering. And of course, once you've done that, it's time for some reflection. You have to adjust and look closely at what you're doing. And when we started to talk, and the first week I talked about having to do this myself, looked at, had a great plan, spent all the time in the world planning, because that for me was the fun part, where I got to think about it and not actually do anything and not have to make those phone calls and write those emails and reach out to people. And I found that what I thought was going to be a big part of my business wasn't. And I looked at my results and I realized that I did have to do some reflection, and that took me to the next part, which is adjusting. So adjusted my approach, adjusted my offerings to be a little bit broader for the specific business demographics that I was looking for. I was looking for, I think what was a better match for me was the smaller not-for-profit, smaller organizations, and that meant I needed to adjust the offering, and the primary products and services that I was offering to people. And that's okay. That was a great learning for me. And you may hit the ball out of the park the first time with your offering and what what you're providing to people in terms of your services or products, but likely you'll be like the rest of us who have had to make some adjustments, improve the next steps, and taking another look too sometimes at the way you're approaching people. Where you think you'll get most of your business may not be. And I talked about this as well, where I thought LinkedIn marketing and content planning was going to be the be all or end all for my business, because I had seen other people doing it. And what I realized was more actually beneficial for me was just spending time chatting with and connecting with my contacts, and having them act as a word of mouth for me. And that was a big learning for me, and really was something that I adjusted my approach, improved my next steps. And in fact, it ended up saving me time, because instead of spending hours a week on content for LinkedIn, I was spending much less time just connecting with people via email, maybe having a quick Zoom chat or phone call, and that garnered me a much more business than I had ever even considered getting through the LinkedIn content marketing. So, not to say that won't work for you, but in my particular case, that was a big adjustment I had to do. And that was okay, and things moved on, and very happy with my side hustle now. So it goes to show you, that reflection and that adjustment can really lead you into some great things can happen in the future. So don't be afraid of that. Don't be afraid of that reflection, and don't feel discouraged, and don't feel demotivated by it, because it just means you're looking at the next step, and the next step can be the best one you'll take. Of course, again, we all can plan for everything to be perfect. It doesn't really happen that way. So when we want to do this, we want to look at sort of what could go wrong. And so in this case, it's a little bit more of like, what's going to get in my way? So what are some of the challenges I might face? So why is it that I might not be able to get to where I want to go? So what are the things that might happen? And you're going to look at if that happens, what can I do if that happens? So what are the actions that I can take? What are the things that I can change? What are the things that, understanding what you can't change as well, and how you're going to deal with that. And then looking at, so big question is, would you need to adjust your goals? So if something got in the way, is there a way around it? And if not, would I then need to adjust the goals that I'm looking at? And I think that's a really important piece to do, where, all the best laid plans, as they say, that's not always the way it works out. And so having this sort of foresight to look at, these are the things that might happen and might get in the way of my success, and having an adjustment, having a plan to adjust those goals if needed, or just to deal with it. Maybe you're just going to find a way to work around it. When you're looking at that 6-month plan, again, everything should be something that you're documenting, you're writing things down. It's great to have things in your head, but when things are written down, you're more likely to action them. So you'll have your sort of main actions, the action steps you want to take, what that will look like, outlining your responsibilities, which, in most cases will be you as a side hustle, but maybe you'll be looking at, I'm going to engage, maybe I'll work with, a finance specialist to help me out with some of these pricing things and how that works. So you could kind of look at anyone that you're engaging to support you. Look at your timeline. So when will you try to achieve what you're looking for, setting those goals that have a timeline to them. Again, you don't want to have just sort of an open timeline. I'll get this done at some point in time. It's much less likely to be achieved that way. If you set yourself a deadline and a reasonable one, you're much more likely to actually achieve it. Again, we talked about those measurements. So how will you measure progress? Success is, something that's very relative and very personal. And that's one thing. But when you look at progress, so it's, as I'm chugging along here, what are the steps that I want to achieve and how am I going to measure them? And then, so you just talked about your sort of risks and solutions, and then how you'll review. So what will that look like to you when it comes to that reflection point? So how and when, I think, is an important question. So are you going to sit down and just physically look at all your sales? Are you going to engage someone and talk to someone? Maybe that's the conversation that you have with Kevin and his team for some business coaching when the time comes to say, here's all the things I've tried. This is what my results look like, and that's a great place to engage others to help you with an objective view of what you could have done differently, and helping you plan for the future to adjust course. When we talk about your next steps, again, goals should be simple, realistic, focusing on the small actions that you can do consistently. Again, I keep saying this, but it's, an important part of it, because I know as a side hustler, I can't commit to, doing 150 things in a week. I have to be looking at those small actions and things I can do consistently, particularly when you're in a service-based business, like I do. If I've committed to something, I need to be able to commit to doing it. I need to be able to do it. So those small actions that I can do on a regular basis, I know I don't have time to do that LinkedIn content marketing plan anymore. It's just not going to work for me and my life, and it's not the side hustle I want. So I'm focusing on those small connections with people directly versus trying to engage with a larger audience, because I know that I can do that consistently. And again, that's coming from my own reflection, but something, that you can think about with your next steps. What is actually achievable for you? That's something that you can do on a consistent basis. And then going back to this review and reflection, every month, take a look at your business. You don't want to be a year down the road where you suddenly realize, oops, I probably should have thought about that and done things a little differently, or slightly tweaked the plan that I had in place. You want to review that each month. That's what will help you succeed, because not only you're looking at where to adjust course, but you'll understand what you did well, what you succeeded at, what was working, and maybe it's fine tuning that or doing more of that. And that, that can be part of your adjustment. But more importantly, when it comes to a side hustle, it's that confidence. These are the 5 things that went really well, and you can celebrate that success. I think that's a really important thing to do, particularly, as you're getting started. Each little success is something that you can, celebrate and feel good about, and it helps you build that confidence. And again, adjusting the plan as you learn. You'll continue to learn. I continue to learn with my side hustle every week. You kind of take a different approach to things. You'll adjust it as you go, and adjusting again for understanding what does work. That's a part of the adjustment as well. Am I going to do more of this? Am I going to spend a little bit more time? Is this going to be my primary focus on all the things I'm doing that work? Or building on it? These 5 things are working. What else could I do that's similar to that, and build on those successes, and, and tweak the things that didn't work as well as you thought. And sometimes it means to stop doing things that aren't working as well. But in order to understand those things, you need that reflection, and you need that tracking of your progress. And when you think about a plan, there's no such thing as perfection. So there's no such thing as a perfect plan. You're really just looking for a clear direction and steady action, and that will get you to where you need to go. You know, that consistency, that clear direction, just every week dedicating the time, that's all part and parcel of your success. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and open up to questions. If anybody has questions, I'll open up the chat now that I've got the screen closed. I can see the chat. So does anybody have any questions they wanted to ask about what we've talked about? Okay, I see a question coming. We have a couple coming in the chat. I see someone typing. Okay, everything was clear. Great, perfect. Oh, yes, I was going to say that, Kevin. So while we're waiting, I think we got one question coming. Just wanted to remind next week is Wednesday, not Thursday, and we're starting earlier at 4. So hopefully that works for everyone. And next week's session will really focus on, some networking. It's going to be about sort of, summing up kind of your next steps and, celebrating and encouraging networking. So hope you'll be able to join us for that. And another reminder for today is that if you want to access the recording, you'll be able to do that on the website, and the PowerPoint will be sent out to you as well. Oh, so I've got question. So question is how do you balance completing client projects with other aspects of your business like promotion, tracking goals, getting new clients, etc. So and that's a great question, and it is difficult because it's a very easy thing to do, to throw all of those things away when you've got money coming in and this is something that's happening. Someone wants to pay me, so it's easy to throw all the other pieces. So my approach to it is to have that schedule so I understand the time that I can dedicate each week to my business one way or another. And I build that into my planning when I look at the timeline that I would give to someone. So if Kevin wanted me to do, some social media content for him, I block it out in terms of the hours that I think it will take me to do. And I would look at how many hours I have in a week. Let's say I know it's going to take me 10 hours to do the work, and I have 5 hours a week to dedicate to my business. And I know I'd spend 2 hours a week on marketing. I would just factor that into the turnaround time for Kevin. So I'd say, Kevin, I can get this to you in 3 weeks. Rather than pushing away my promotion time. So I keep that solid, let's say it's 2 hours a week to focus on that. And I don't ever give that up. So I know how many hours a week I have to dedicate, make it simple. Let's say I take 5 hours a week for my business. 2 of those hours are dedicated to promotion and tracking and getting new clients. The other hours, when I've got work to do, that's where that comes in. And when I don't have work to do, it means I have more time for the promotion and reaching out to more people. But I just keep that 2 hours locked in, just because otherwise, this was a lesson that I learned, because it was a situation that I had myself where I had suddenly a big opportunity came in. I focused all my time on the client. And then when the job was done, things had dried up because I hadn't been doing that promotion. And that was a lesson learned the hard way, because I kind of had to play catch up with people because I hadn't been looking for that next client. And so it was all great when the check came in for the business that I earned, but it made it all that more difficult to get the next check coming in. So, keep that, whatever that looks like for you. For me, it's usually about 2 hours a week that I focus on that. And I just lock that time up and calculate that into any other work that I do. I only consider 3 hours of my time available. Does that answer your question? Hopefully. Okay, perfect. Great. Any other questions? Okay, well, great. If there are any that come up after the fact, again, you can always get in touch with Kevin's team, and we'll get the questions answered for you. So thank you so much for joining us tonight, and hopefully we will see you next week, and looking forward to a wonderful networking session. Thank you so much.